Hi, I'm Donna Kallner. This is the final video unit in Lesson 1 of the New Age Looping Basics e-course. In this video, I'll show you how to finish the small sample pouch that you've probably been working on and a suggestion for a small project that you might work to reinforce the techniques that you've been learning in this first lesson. So let's get started.
So far in this lesson, you've been stitching a small looping sample, working on a mold from a wrapped base cord. In a previous video, you learned how to add thread, and I hope you've practiced that. In another video, you learned about reorienting the piece to resume stitching after a break, and some self-checks you can perform. In other words, I've interrupted you a bunch of times with new information, and you may not have gotten a lot of stitching done. That's okay, because this is just a sample. You can put me on pause while you stitch a couple more rows on your sample piece. Maybe add thread again and stitch another row or two. To finish this lesson, stop at one side of the mold if you're using a mold that's wafer shaped, and resume the video. Then I'll show you one way to finish the base of a small pouch. Slip the sample you've been working off the mold for a second. Test the elasticity like you did before, feeling the difference between the live edge and the rim where you started with the wrapped base cord. To finish this sample as a small pouch, you're going to stitch the live edge on the front to the live edge on the back. Now, if you're working with a round mold instead of something that's wafer shaped, just designate a front and back and finish with the piece off the mold. If you're working with a wafer shaped mold like this, though, slip the piece back onto the mold and scoot the piece down so that the live edges match up at the bottom of the mold. Starting with the thread at one of the edges, whip from one end to the other. To do that, insert the needle from east to west, passing under one leg on the front live edge and one leg on the back live edge. Notice that this differs from looping because the needle isn't passing over the working thread. Draw this thread through, pulling the edges together. Now, pass the thread from west to east and whip another stitch, inserting the needle from east to west and passing under one leg on the front edge and one leg on the back edge. Zigzag back and forth this way to close the base. Don't worry if individual legs on the front and back don't match up exactly. All you need to do is stitch the two edges together. Make your last stitch a looping stitch that does travel over the working thread, and pull it into a little knot. Carry the tail to the inside of the pouch and clip the thread. Test the elasticity again. The whipped base will stretch less than the live edges did. Congratulations! With this sample, you've learned the mechanics of looping and a lot about how to control the size and tension of stitches. So let's think about a simple project you might do with what you've learned. My suggestion is to make a small drawstring pouch to hold a thimble, a small vial, or some other small object. Begin this sample project with a wrapped base cord. Loop in a continuous spiral as you did in your sample, adding thread as needed. Work a pouch that's about 2/3 the depth you want. When you reach that point, whip the base to close it. To complete the sample project pouch, you can reorient the mold, anchor a new thread, and work so that your rim has an elastic edge. You can even use a different color thread if you like for this section. To anchor the new thread, lay the tail of the new thread along the edge of the wrapped base cord so that you can trap that tail with your stitches as you advance. Insert your needle from north to south under the original base cord and under the new tail, draw it over the working thread, and pull it into a little knot. This is called picking up a thread. It should seem very familiar since you did almost the exact same thing to anchor the original base cord and something very similar every time you added thread. Start stitching over the original base cord, trapping the tail with your stitches as you advance. Stitch to the depth you want for your pouch, making it a bit deeper than the object the pouch will hold, so you have enough room for the top to close when you draw it closed. For this project, you'll want to plan ahead where you might add thread so that it doesn't get in the way of your drawstring closure. It's okay to waste a little thread and add before you run out, if that makes it easier for you to get the results you want. The challenge in this piece is in the row where you'll thread your drawstring closure. Make your goal stitches that are a little taller and legs that are a little looser to accommodate the bulk of your drawstring. That drawstring may be a braid of whatever thread you're stitching with, a piece of ribbon or twill tape, a strip of leather, whatever you decide. Look at what your drawstring materials are and base the size of your stitches and the size of your legs on what that drawstring material is. Ready for another challenge? After you work the row for the drawstring with the longer stitches and looser legs, work a row or two where you go back to your original size for your stitches and legs. That's good practice. When you decide you're done, stitch to one side of the pouch. Without advancing, make another stitch that you draw into a knot. Weave the tail down to where you picked up the thread and secure the tail along the original wrapped base cord or along one of your trapped tail thread additions. You can trim that thread off, weave the drawstring through the spaces, knot it, and you're done. Of course, you can put your own spin on this project to suit your own tastes and materials. That's it for this video. This is the last video in Lesson 1 of the New Age Looping Basics e-course. In the next lesson, you'll learn about increases, decreases, shaping, and more. I'll see you then. I'm Donna Kallner. Have fun with your stitching.